As a football fan, I'm sure you would have came across stories of footballers that would have had you affected in some ways. Many fans get motivated by Ronaldo's story of achieving everything by sheer hard work and discipline. Someone can get inspired by Messi's story of winning it all without being physically blessed, while some fans see stories of downfall of other players and get an understanding as to what not to do in their careers. And today, we will talk about a very special player and his story, which is very much on its initial pages but still must be discussed. We're gonna talk about Vinicius Jr. And the reason we must talk about this player is because football fans must know what Vinicius has experienced as a footballer at this young age of 23. And I get that many people don't really like him. In fact, they hate him. But again, I'm not here to change your opinion. We all are different. We may like or hate different things based on how we perceive stuff. And it's up to you whether to get inspired by his story or hate him more. But one thing I guarantee is you'll surely find his story interesting. So without any further ado, let's begin. Now he comes from a humble background, but his talent for football was recognized very soon by his family. And it was not long before one of the biggest clubs in Brazil, Flamengo, came calling, and he joined their youth system at 10. And it would be an understatement to say that he was a standout player. By the time he was 11, he was bumped up to their under-13 team, and the comparison with Robinho started. He was the standout player in Flamengo's under-13 ranks. Their team went a 90-game unbeaten run, and Brazilian people started noticing Vini and his joyful playing style. And it is said that Flamengo at this point got an offer by Corinthians, which was unreal, but Flamengo decided not to sell their young talent. And all of this hype usually start corrupting young footballers, and Flamengo rightfully wanted to prevent him. But it was not long before he was called up by Brazil to play for the Under-15 South American Championship. He could only play 5 matches in that tournament, but came out with 6 goals and 5 assists, and also won the trophy for Brazil. Now European scouts started showing interest, but he stayed put, performing well for Flamengo's youth system. At 16, he won the Under-17 Carioca Trophy for Flamengo, then joined their Under-18s to play in the Copinha Trophy, also known as the Copa Sao Paulo. It happens to be a very prestigious tournament with regards to the youth of Brazil. And in this tournament, many Brazilian legends like Casemiro, Neymar, Gabriel Jesus and more were discovered. Now he was just 16, playing with elder players, but he outshined everyone. He exhibits some jaw-dropping skills for a 16-year-old, and it became clear that he was a natural talent. Barcelona got serious and offered Flamengo his release clause, which was 30 million euros. And although it was not official, but many newspapers claimed that Vini to Barca was done. And it could have very well happened. But then came the Under-17 South American Championships, where he was called up to play for Brazil. People had eyes on what Vini Jr is going to do, and he delivered would be an understatement. His skills were off the chart. He was scoring nutmegs and chipping the goalkeeper. Brazil won that tournament with some outrageous performances by Vini. He not only won the Golden Boot, but he was also named the player of the tournament. And when the competition ended, newspapers in Spain started reporting that Barcelona will sign the next Neymar. And that's where Florentino Perez comes in. You see, he was very close to signing Neymar, but missed out on it. And that's one of the few regrets that he has as the president of Real Madrid. So as you can imagine, he was not going to make the same mistake again. And he moved heaven and earth to bring Vini to the Spanish capital. You see, Vini has just made his debut for the Flamengo first team, which was not that good to be honest. And that was one of the reasons why Barca weren't that aggressive in Vini's pursuit. You see, this was Bartomeu's era, and they weren't sure how good of a player can Vini become. So Real Madrid took benefit of it. They convinced Flamengo to renew Vini's contract so that they can outbid Barcelona, which they did, and Flamengo were happy to receive 45 million for a player who has just played once for their first team and will play for them for 1.5 years more, as he cannot join Real Madrid before he turns 18. But anyways, Vinicius was now a Real Madrid bound player, and this was the story about how a prodigy joined the biggest club in the world. And now to the next chapter. See how Vinicius gets booed in away stadiums in Spain, how the fans hate him and throws shameful racist slurs at him. And it's one thing that you're playing well against a team or provoking the other players, and the fans want to get back at you. But what surprised me was that he has been dealing with hate since he was a teenager. Yes, you heard it right. Brazilian media themselves have hated Vinicius for a long time. It's a problem with Brazilians' obsession with football and their expectations from the teenage stars. So the issue was, Vinicius was a 16-year-old who commanded a fee of 45 million euros, and it was not up to him, but out of all the young players that came out from Brazil, only Neymar and Kaká have had more transfer fees than him. And with great transfer amounts comes media attention. And this is a problem for the players in the social media generation. They will be criticized for whatever they do. And Vinicius is not a player who just puts his head down and plays football. He does some showboating, he dribbles, he laughs, he cries, he has fun on the field, he dances, he provokes other players. In short, he's the kind of player about whom media can talk a lot about other things that he does apart from football. And ironically, after signing for Real Madrid, his performance on the field for Flamengo suffered. In the first few matches for the first team, he came on as a sub. It was bad. And then he started a few matches. It got even worse. He was not scoring or assisting, nor was he dribbling past the players. It felt like he was not able to deal with the pressure. And just after 5 matches, he was dropped altogether from the Flamengo first team. And although it came back, but his performances were not improving. There was a match where he was subbed in at the 75th minute and played so bad that he was subbed out before the game was over. It was bad. He was becoming a joke. The Spanish media were reporting that Real Madrid had signed a 45 million flop, and the media at Brazil, they were brutal. Listen to some of these clips.
Não sabe fazer gol. O Vinicius Jr.
Burro. O Neguebinha 2017? O Vinicius Jr lá.
Ele não é todo jogador que a gente imaginava que ele fosse.
Eu acho que não vale 150 milhões. Eu acho que não é esse fenômeno todo.
Vocês acham que o Vinicius Jr é o novo Pelé? Não é. Ele não sabe nem chutar bola. Ele é da base, ele não sabe chutar a bola. A verdade é essa.
They were downright hating Vinicius, and I understand that you have a lot of expectations from the next big thing that your country has to offer, but again, he's just a kid. Let him breathe. They were saying that he won't even play a single minute for Real Madrid, and they should sell him and recover the amount they can get while they can. And at Barcelona, it was a feeling of relief, like they dodged a bullet. And Vinicius, a young player who might not have the capacity to comprehend what was happening, was dealing with all this. And somehow, instead of getting carried away, he found a way to excel in this situation and started to improve his on-field performances. Flamengo rightfully gave him an opportunity against rivals Fluminense in the quarterfinals of the South American Cup. He was subbed in the dying minutes of the match, while Flamengo trailed by 1 goal. He came in and not only scored the equalizer, but won the free kick, which was eventually converted to the winning goal. He made the difference when it mattered, and I want to highlight this unique quality that he has. That is, in the moments when he has been under immense pressure or is criticized, he somehow delivers. We see him doing this for Real Madrid now, but even when he was young and not at the highest level, in fact he was playing bad, but still had the determination to prove those people wrong who said that he cannot make it. Anyways, he continued with Flamengo for the next year. All eyes were on him, and Flamengo giving him minutes was paying off. He was playing well. Some of his decision making was still in question, but he was young, and it was a belief that he will improve. He already helped Flamengo to win the Guanabara Cup, but he did something better before his move to Europe. Flamengo trailed in one of their matches in Copa Libertadores, and that is the equivalent of Champions League in South America. And looking at his form, the coach decided to give Vini his debut in this competition. He was subbed in the 68th minute, and within 10 minutes, he had scored a stunning solo goal. And then he scored the winner with just 5 minutes left on the clock. That day, he took Flamengo to the next round and announced himself in the biggest club competition in South America. And now it was time to don the royal white at the Santiago Bernabeu. On July 2018, he became a Real Madrid player, and I must mention, for all the skills he possessed, his presentation was not the most elegant one. Anyways, his integration to the first team happened in a way which was unexpected for lack of a better word. He was supposed to play for the under-19s and then for the B team, so he can get used to the football in Europe, which he was doing. But he had to be integrated to the first team because of the situation at Madrid at that time, and let me remind you of that. They had just won their 13th Champions League, and Cristiano Ronaldo left. Lopetegui was the manager, and Madrid was playing their worst football in past 10 years. Real's attack was toothless, as there was no player who could replace Ronaldo at the left wing. It was a time of transition for Real Madrid, and Barcelona were dominating. They beat Real Madrid with a scoreline of 5-1, and Real decided to sack Lopetegui. He had already given Vinicius his debut, but that was just that, a debut for the sake of it. But now comes Santiago Solari as the interim manager, a former Real Madrid player and the coach of their B team, under whom Vini had played a few matches and performed well, so he decides to take a chance on him. And Vini was far from the player we see him today. Chaotic is the word that describes his game of that time perfectly. Understand this, after Cristiano, Real Madrid lacked goals, and Vini was, let's say, not the most reliable player when it came to goal scoring. And it was clear to see for everyone as his decision making in the final third was poor. His final pass or the shot on goal was of bad quality, and when your team is performing bad and people have eyes on you, your mistakes are even more highlighted. And Vini made some mistakes, yes. The rival fans laughed on him, he got booed, there were jokes on him in the media, but not a lot of people noticed that raw talent, that chaos he was causing. Young Vini has this quality that even if he misplaced the pass or lost the ball, he won't sit back. He will still ask for the ball and go at it again and again. He gave 2 assists in his first start. That was a Copa del Rey match. Then he scored his first goal for Real Madrid against Real Valladolid in La Liga. And because of that unpredictable nature of his game, he was becoming an interesting option. But then he tore his ligament during the loss against Ajax at the round of 16 of the Champions League. And that ended his first season at Real Madrid. Now Zidane was reappointed as the manager, and Eden Hazard was his marquee signing who was to play on the left. And Vini was supposed to be a bit part player coming off the bench, but Hazard, as you know, was riddled with injuries. And Vini, who was returning from a long-term injury himself, needed some time to recover, and that was clearly visible in his performances. His lack of quality in the front of the goal became a point of joke in Spain. He went goalless for almost 8 months. The fans booed him, they called him Vinicius with an F. And when he scored his first goal of the season, he literally cried. It meant a lot to him. Anyways, by now, he became the meme of the media. He was called a diver, someone who cannot finish for his life. Brazilian pundits said that a player like him does not deserve to be called for the national team. And that was more or less how his second season ended at the Spanish capital. Nothing special. And if you look at Vini's stats till date, his highest was 7 goals and 4 assists for Flamengo in 2018. And the next season, he scored 4 goals and 6 assists for Real Madrid, playing under various managers. Then in 1920 season, under Zidane, about which we just spoke, he had 5 goals and 3 assists. And the season after that, 2020-21, which was again under Zidane, he played more. But in terms of outcome, he was still below average. He just had 6 goals and 4 assists. So he never went above 10 goal contributions. And this is a subpar outcome for a player playing as a winger at Real Madrid. They have had players who have scored 20 plus goals consistently. So Vini had to improve if he wanted to be a mainstay at Real Madrid long term. But the problem of decision making in front of the goal was evident not only to the opponents but to his own teammates as well. 2020-21 was the year when the Benzema incident happened. It was the Champions League group game against Borussia Mönchengladbach. Vini was having a bad game, and in the halftime break, Benzema said to Ferland Mendy to not to pass the ball to Vini on his mother's life as he was playing against them. And this was caught in camera. It was a low point for the player, and as you can imagine, it became the talk of the town. Both Vini and Benzema had to later come forward and brush it off, saying things like these can happen in dressing room. But if you are a young player and this happens at the biggest stage, your confidence goes out of the window. It was clear to everyone that his teammates did not regard Vinicius very highly. Now I should also mention that the whole season was a bit problematic for Real Madrid. After winning the league last year, they had to face a lot of injuries. But somehow Zidane was managing to get some decent results, but was annoyed with the constant pressure created by the media. However, they still fought for La Liga till the last day, but they finished second just by 2 points behind Atleti. And in the Champions League, they were eliminated by Chelsea in the semi-finals. They went trophyless for the first time since 2009. Zidane decided to leave, and although Vini's stats were more or less similar to the previous seasons, but I personally felt that there was an improvement to his game. Like y'all would remember the match against Liverpool in the Champions League where he scored 2 goals, or the one he scored against Shakhtar, coming on as a sub and changing the game. I saw him dribble better, cross the balls better, taking cautious decisions in front of the goal. I remember thinking to myself that if the situation with Hazard does not improve, Vini can slowly start becoming a reliable option. But the numbers still weren't great, so people did not regard him anywhere close to being a top player. But that was about to change. Now I must mention this, that Vini has been on the spotlight for years. And because the year-on-year improvement was not substantial, many believed that he won't reach his potential. Now I don't have to mention the memes going against him, but you must understand that not many young players recover from such situations. But Vinicius Jr. trained. He worked on improving his finishing. In the break between the seasons, I could see other players partying, but Vini's social media feed was filled with training videos. And Real Madrid on their part brought in Carlo Ancelotti to replace Zidane. And Don Carlo unleashed the beast within Vini Jr. See, Ancelotti is a unique kind of a coach and is most suited to manage a team like Real Madrid. And I've made a video on this topic which you can watch here, but the point is, he's not known for his strict training methods or his tactical brilliance. Although he has many such qualities, but if you look at it, the top quality that he has is his man management. My man gave Vini the freedom and confidence he needed in front of the goal, and Vini exploded. I remember a reporter asking Vini the secret behind his sudden improvement, and Vini saying that Carlo told me to be a little calm in front of the goal. And why I bring this up is because it was clear that Vini had a lot of potential, but for him to get to the next level, he needed a figure like that. You see, if you're a winger at Real Madrid, you are expected to perform from the get-go. And he was doing everything and more, but nothing ended up working. And a player like Vini, I felt, needed someone who can calm him down, make him understand how he can use his qualities in the best manner. And Ancelotti did that perfectly. Vini started getting on the score sheet from the get-go. The first match he replaced Hazard, he scored a brace, and he never looked back towards the bench again. And remember how I said that he could not go past 10 goal contributions? This season, he improved on that by 4-fold. He had 41 goal contributions. He was winning the Man of the Match awards, the Player of the Month awards, and won La Liga as well. His performance in the Champions League was exceptional. Be it PSG, Chelsea or Manchester City, he had important goal involvements in every single match and scored the only goal in the final and won the Champions League as well. He was the first under-21 player after Messi to have more than 10 goal contributions in a single UCL campaign. He was the most effective player on the pitch alongside Benzema. Vinicius became a new person this season, and it was not a one-season thing, as he has been consistent for 3 years now. So it became hard to criticize Vinicius based on his performances. So now people should start loving Vini, right? No, they found a new reason to hate him. Now Vinicius' game was drastically improved. His approach was more direct and was starting to become a game changer for the team. And for some reason now, he started getting more hate. See, I mentioned this before, that Vini is not a player who would put his head down and play football. When he performed bad, he still had fun. And now when he was excelling, he was expressing himself. He used to dance to celebrate and got a lot of hate for that. And dancing in football is nothing new. Brazilian dance, Neymar danced, Ronaldinho danced, and not only the Brazilians, many players dance. But Vini for some reason is one of those players who would always remain provocative for some people. Now as the next season started, he continued from where he left. He was playing well, winning and scoring goals. The team went to the Club World Cup where Vini won the Player of the Tournament award, even scored 2 goals in the final. So in general, he was having a good season, but Spanish pundits had a problem with his dancing. One of them clearly said that he must stop monkeying around. And it was not just the Spanish pundits. Like in the away stadiums, monkey chants and racist slurs became common for Vini Jr. Rival players fouled him like crazy. And yes, Vini reacted sometimes, but I must also mention that he was fouled a lot. I mean a lot. In a match versus Mallorca, they broke the record of the most tackles in a single La Liga match, most aimed at Vini. And I was surprised to see the people's reaction. It was like a normal thing. There were statements like, "This is what you should get for celebrating like that." I mean, what? He should be kicked and abused for dancing? See, that for me is unfair. And it was not a one-off thing. In a match versus Osasuna, there was an announcement for a minute's silence to remember the victims in Turkey. But Osasuna fans broke it with the monkey chants. Then at Barca and Atleti, abusing Vini became the new slogan for the fans. Atleti fans took it a step ahead. They hung an effigy of Vini in a bridge. Yes, a mannequin hung on a bridge with Vini Jr written on the back. That was dark. That's pure hate. I mean, he's not a terrorist. He's just a 20-something-year-old footballer who's yet to make mistakes and mature. So it was hard for me to understand why was there so much hate. But anyways, things reached a boiling point in the game versus Valencia. You see, their stadium Mestalla has an impression of being an intense place for the away team. And Vini at this point was arguably the best player in La Liga, and Valencia fans clearly wanted to put him down. They went crazy with the shouts. There were constant monkey chants. Whenever Vini got the ball, the whole stadium shouted like crazy. It reached a point where Vini lost control, and he confronted a fan mid-game, pointing towards him saying, "I saw you making monkey noises." And Valencia players barged on Vini. They pulled him back. Then Real Madrid players got involved. It was a chaos. The ref had to stop the game, but then he gave a red card to Vini. And that for obvious reasons didn't go well with many people. Incidents of this match went viral. Important people from other leagues and countries now started showing their support for Vini. And La Liga at this point was looking like a league that had a racism problem. Vini after the game came out and said La Liga belongs to the racist. And there was no hiding or defending it. Ideally, officials at this point should have taken some action, or at least acted like they want to take some actions. But you won't believe the response of Javier Tebas, the La Liga president. He tweeted that La Liga is not racist and Vini is the one who is not informing himself properly. Yes, I'm not lying. He really tweeted that. Apparently, according to Tebas, Vini should have come and discussed the racism problem with the La Liga officials, and Vini was not doing that. Now I don't know about you, but if the authority, instead of taking actions, starts pointing at the victim, I believe they've lost the plot here. And the response from Tebas, it acted like a fuel in the ongoing fire. People lost their minds. General fans could not understand what was happening in Spain. Brazilian public, they started showing their support for Vini. And this incident became huge. Football fans were asking for the culprits to be punished. Heads of countries got involved. Javier Tebas, after how he handled this situation, became a person who was unanimously hated everywhere. He had to later come forward and apologize for his tweets. You can read his response, but he basically said that his words were interpreted incorrectly. Vini at that point was just 22, and while all of this was happening, he was clear that he wanted to respond and fight the racism. He demanded the culprits must be punished, and he wanted a change in a place where racism has been normal for lack of a better word. There have been incidents before, but players had to suffer most of the time, and I cannot recall any proper punishments that were given to the culprits. Other players said this as well, and Vini himself admitted later that he was told to be quiet and leave it to the authority and just play football. But he went against those advices and stood his ground, raised his voice, and the culprits for the very first time got serious punishment for racism in La Liga. Now, keeping my favoritism aside, racism is something which should not be a part of football or any other sport or profession or in society for that matter. And people who are strong enough to fight, even after being asked to stop doing it constantly, I think deserve some respect. And the reason why I took so long to explain all of this was because people should understand what Vini went through. And at 22, I don't know about you, but I was not in a mental zone to fight racism in a foreign country. Now getting back to his performance on the field. See, the term I used to describe Vini's game was chaotic. And I use that word because when he's on the ball, he's not patient. In fact, he's direct. He runs towards the defenders, he's constantly trying to create, and many a times he loses the ball. But he's on it again. And although he had an excellent season earlier, but to expect this kind of performance every year from Vini felt like asking too much of him. However, this was his second season under Ancelotti, and he showed that he can be consistent. In a season which was not the best for Real Madrid, as they lost the league to Barca and were knocked out of the Champions League by the eventual winners Man City, Vinicius was the bright spot for Real Madrid, scoring 23 goals and assisting 21. So 2 back-to-back seasons with 40+ goal contributions, and those are numbers of a top performer. And you have to remember that teams in Spain are happy to sit back against Real Madrid, making it more difficult to score, and now the players were aware of what he can do and were more aggressive towards him, not to forget the abuse he was getting anywhere he went. And when you take all of this into account, it adds more value to his outcome. Now we have reached the 2023-24 season, and of course he was great in the previous campaign, and he started off where he left, scoring a banger in his second game versus Almeria, assisted by Jude Bellingham. And you all saw how Bellingham's addition was an added benefit for Vinicius as well as for the team. So there were some expectations, yes. But then he got struck by not one but 2 major injuries, which kept him out for a significant time, 2.5 months to be exact. Now after he came back from his first injury, which was a hamstring, he took a couple of matches but started getting back to the score sheet, both in the league and in the Champions League as well. Remember the horror at Valencia in the previous season? Vinicius returned to the stadium with an intent and scored 2 goals in a much heated encounter again, before he got his second injury of the season, which was a torn thigh muscle, and this disrupted his momentum again. Now before his second injury, he had 6 goals and 4 assists in total, and now he had to get back to his fitness and find his form again. So it was almost impossible to reach a respectable number by the end of the season. But my man came back and played like a man possessed. He took no time getting back to action, and by the time the season ended, he had scored 24 goals and assisted 11. All of this while he missed 14 matches through injuries and suspension. He won the Super Cup beating Barcelona in the final, where he scored a hat-trick. Then he won La Liga, then won the Champions League, scoring in the final and destroying some German defenders along the way. Another great season with the Royal Whites. Now looking back to how his story started, from making a name as a kid in the streets of Brazil, to then being a player who most people thought was overhyped, hated in his own country, expected to be sold by Real Madrid within a year, to establishing his place in the biggest club in the world and winning every trophy, including multiple league titles and Champions League before turning 24. And all of this while fighting so much hate along the way. What a story so far. Everything he faced and the achievements he has in this short span is a lot. It has just been 4 years since he left Brazil and is being discussed amongst the best attacker in Europe right now and is the favorite to win the Ballon d'Or this year. It's crazy to imagine how people said that Real Madrid overpaid for him at 45 million, and now his market value is same as Erling Haaland or Jude Bellingham at 180 million. His story so far has been like a movie. So before I end this video, I just want to say that setbacks are part of life. But what separates an achiever from an average person is the attitude of getting their heads up again and chase their dreams. I know that he's yet to make his mark with the Brazilian national team, but I know that he will. And I will continue with the next chapter of his story in due time. So take what you can from this video and like if you think it was worth your while. Share your thoughts on the comments and subscribe to Football Ledger. It really means a lot. Thank you for watching and see you on the next one. Ciao.